Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this regularly scheduled Township Board of Supervisors meeting. I would like to welcome Troop 25 here tonight. They're participating in some merit badge exercises to get their citizenship in the community badge. Hopefully they will become vibrant members of the community in the future and help be the leadership as we pass into the future. To that end, I would ask that they lead us in the pledge tonight.
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, justice for all.
So I guess three of my fellow board members are on Zoom tonight from other locations, and one is on vacation, so I'm sitting here by myself tonight, well, with my solicitor as my protector.
Yes, sir.
So we did have an executive session immediately following the October 10th meeting, and that was to have a collective bargaining discussion with our solicitor. At this point, I would like to open up the floor to communication from citizens. So if you're on Zoom and want to address the board, I would ask you to click the raise hand button. If you're in the audience, please be recognized and then come forward, state your name and address for the record, and then address your comments to me. So I'll leave it at that for now. And also, anybody in Troop 25 that would like to address the board or make a comment, you're free to do so as well. So at this point, I would like to open up the floor. Is there anyone who would like to? Yes, sir. At the podium, please, name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Aaron Catherman. I live at 102 North Rockburn Street in Old East York. I know that myself and some other concerned residents of my neighborhood have shown up tonight in concern with the speeding and traffic coming through Old East York. I live on the corner of Rockburn, which is a cut through from Market Street to Industrial Highway, and then Philadelphia Street, which is also runs parallel with Market Street. In the recent years, the amount of traffic that has been coming through our neighborhood has been increasing and increasing, to the point at which in the last week there has been numerous accidents. Cars have been in my front yard twice. It is a bus stop right at the corner that I'm talking about in particular. And we have had numerous incidents with people running stop signs right when the bus is actually parked as well. We have called officers to come out and patrol the area, and they have done, you know, at the times when they're there, people do abide by the stop sign. But the amount of concern that is being brought up amongst the residents because of the number of children that are in the neighborhood, it's just, with the traffic and with this new construction on 83 coming up, more and more people are just using our neighborhood as a cut through, and they're using it as a bypass to get around the traffic, you know, in congested areas on Market Street and Industrial Highway. They know that they can hit 83 at the end of the neighborhood, and there are cars that are doing 60 mile an hour, you know, right past our kids sitting there at the bus stops. This last incident that happened was about 5 minutes before the bus showed up, and a car was T-boned right in front of me and actually threw the car into my front yard into the tree that my daughter has her fairy garden in, you know. So the concern is getting to the point that we just don't know what we need to do. We need to figure out something do we do speed humps? Do we do controlled traffic patterns? I don't know what the answer necessarily is, but just wanted to bring it to your attention that it is becoming a very big problem in the neighborhood.
I appreciate that. Chief, can you shed any light on what's going on over there?
Yes, we did have two accidents in front of Mr. Kathman's property. One, the collision that he described, it was a T-bone accident where somebody actually ran the stop sign that's on Rockburn Street. Resulted in a T-bone accident. The accident, what we refer to as unit number 2 in the accident, ended up in his front yard. We also had a hit and run where a stop sign was struck. Took the stop sign out, the very stop sign he's talking about at that corner. Because of this, we went back and looked at the accident history in that area, and we've had 3 accidents there in the past 10 years, right there at that particular intersection. We have also assigned officers to the area, as he stated. We get them out there as often as we can. We know that this has been an issue, and this isn't the first complaint we've had at Philadelphia Street especially. So we've had people in the area, and it's assigned on our traffic enforcement log. We have directed patrol going there now, and they have been since the incident. They're scheduled to be there for at least a 2-week period, and then we're going to reevaluate at that time.
Yeah, we've had issues similar to this in other neighborhoods around the area that we have taken various measures. Interesting to see what this will look like.
Agreed.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Steve Rice, 33 North Rockburn Street. I just wanted to add to what Aaron had said. I live 3 houses down from Aaron on Rockburn. My son was coming home from a workout and was pulling into the opposite side of the street's driveway to back in, and he didn't even get his truck into reverse. It was still in park, and then he got rear-ended. Somebody was tailing him through the neighborhood, and I don't know if the police station has that on record as well. And the officer said there were 3 accidents in 10 years, but there was 2 in the last 2 weeks. If I could make a suggestion to the police, I walk my dog almost every morning at 6:30 a.m., and they're flying through our neighborhood, not only on Rockburn, on Kesey, and on Marshall, which are on either side of Rockburn. So I've given dirty looks and yelled at cars as they're flying by because they almost hit me and my dog, and I've got an 80-pound Bernese Mountain Dog. It's fairly easy to see. And I don't know if Kayla's going to mention anything, but Kayla lives on Kesey, and her dog got hit and killed 2 weeks ago. I mean, it's getting to the point, dogs are getting killed. I'm not going to. But we don't need kids and adults and elderly that are walking amongst the neighborhood and have more severe issues. I understand it's a huge community. We have limited police. But if we can provide times as to when we think they should be there to help observe, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, and I know the chief works with citizens to find appropriate times to do enforcement. Obviously, understanding we can't be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Ultimately, what we would look to do is, with understanding the traffic in the area, are there other measures that we can do? I mean, obviously, stop signs don't work because they run through them anyway, or directly over them. I don't know if speed tables are appropriate in that area or not. There are some levers we have to pull, but ultimately, human nature is human nature. So.
I understand that, but we don't want to give that explanation to a parent with a dead child.
I understand.
Are
but
cameras an option? Can cameras, so then we can start getting tickets issued?
I don't know what the law is on that. We would have to research that.
Cameras are
Not allowed.
no.
And it's my understanding from a Springettsbury Township police officer, they can't even have radar, which baffles my mind. So they have to use some kind of technology to start and stop. So in a neighborhood, you're not going to be able to get a speed. Is there a way to post a lesser speed? Because neighborhoods are 25 miles an hour. I typically drive 15 through any neighborhood, not just mine, and people are exceeding 30, 35, 40, and just blowing through stop signs, mainly our intersection, Rockburn and Philly. And then when I start yelling at them, then I see the same maroon Malibu on one street over doing the same thing. He's trying to avoid me because he comes through the neighborhood at the same time I'm walking my dog.
25 is the minimum posted speed that we're allowed.
Oh, we can't go below 25.
No.
School zone allows it, but you don't have a school there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, a lot of what we're allowed to do is controlled by the state. And we have to show a lot of information before we can do various things, like traffic signals and things like that require certain conditions that are very hard to meet in often cases.
If we draw up a petition and get every resident to sign it on the streets that are affected or the whole neighborhood, does that help? Or is that wasted time?
So some of the efforts that we can undertake would require that a large portion of the citizens do sign an agreement that it's okay, like putting speed tables and things like that would
We have a
require.
speed table policy. I don't have it on me.
Yeah,
If you reach out to me, I can get it to you to see what our policy is for speed tables. But this neighborhood is already on our radar to discuss internally for the upcoming, as the first gentleman mentioned, with the I-83 work that's going to happen over the next decade probably. So we're already scheduled to discuss what we can do to discourage cut-through traffic. But as you can imagine, anything that we do to discourage cut-through traffic is going to negatively impact the people that live there because they're going to have to endure the same hardships, meaning one-way roads or closing roadways off.
and we were looking at that at Whiteford Road, 10th and 11th Avenue over, I don't know if you're familiar with that area. It's on the south side of Route 30 between the dealership and Sherman Street.
Okay.
And we were looking at some one-way circulation around there, closing off a roadway or making it one-way only in and some things like that. So it's disruptive. It's intended to be disruptive to stop the bad behavior. The problem is it's also disruptive for the people who live there. So there's a trade-off, and that has to be understood.
Totally, and I'm sure the 8, 9, 10 residents that are here from that neighborhood would be happy to have that mild issue to have to only go a certain way.
I completely understand, and there are an awful lot more than 8, 9, 10, and I don't know how many of the people in there ever speed through that area, or if they were impacted that they had to drive all the way around for a mile to get out of the development, if they'd be happy with that. So it's a broader issue that we have to take into full consideration and find the right solution. Not always easy, but we're going to work with you to do it.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Charlene Dawkins, 14 North Kesey Street. I also want to put something into perspective. When you come off of Market Street and go up Rockburn, your first stop is down into Industrial Parkway. There's a park that's right there on the corner. It already doesn't have a sidewalk, and we understand that. But I understand that we're talking a lot about inconvenience in neighborhood. We are a village. Our children are always together. So piggybacking on what my neighbor Steve said, we're not just talking about a child, we're talking about multiple children. And the safe place is supposed to be their park. So we've already accepted the fact that due to whatever that we can't have a sidewalk. But to now ask us to accept the fact that we might be inconvenienced because we have to go around. I stand here as a resident of that block. It does not bother me. I need to save our children. Another thing that has been brought to my attention too, when I first moved into the neighborhood, they were working on the bridge at 83 and Market Street. They slowed down that light that is on North Hills and Market Street. I wonder, has that light ever been changed back to the regular time? Because we haven't had a buildup of traffic like that since the construction. And if it hasn't gone back to that, that can also be a problem, because now if there's nothing happening, where people are just sitting on Market Street. So my question is, does anybody know that once that light was turned for construction, was the timing on that light turned back?
It was.
It was.
It's within permit. It's within the traffic signal permit today.
Okay, so so when the construction started, you had to change it, and then you changed it back, and what it's currently now is what it was before?
Correct. Before construction.
It is currently before construction.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Dawkins, D-A-W-K-I-N-S? Yep.
Yes, sir, in the back corner.
Declan Lair, 3730 Silverwood Drive. We've had a dog in our neighbor's yard. She's outside barking hours a day. She's outside from like 5 to 7 in the morning within 2-hour periods, almost like 4 times every day. She's barking, and I've heard that there's a neighborhood law thingamabobber that 20 minutes a day is the max amount of time your dog can be barking nonstop. And we've contacted people about it, animal control. She's gotten out a couple times and just ran around the entire neighborhood. And we've contacted a few times recently, and we've just been kind of getting ignored about it.
So do we know what the ordinance is, as he stated, right?
Yes, the police will notify our dog control.
So our wonderful chief sitting in the back corner of the room is going to make sure that his officers notify.
We
animal
also
control.
feel like she's maybe getting neglected and missing meals a day for how often she's outside. And the owner has people helping. She's maybe in her 90s. She's old.
So maybe
Experienced.
she's experienced. I'm sensing a scout project here to help this old lady out. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? Yes, sir.
Hi, Will Hanlon, 124 North Kesey Street. I echo everything that these parents have said, these residents have said, and I think we're curious, what would be the next step? Are we facing more of a logistical challenge? Is it a financial challenge? What can we do to take action to at least try to do something other than just talk about it?
It's not a financial challenge in my mind.
Okay.
Logistical, traffic studies, permitting, things that we have to go through to be able to change something with the streets. And along with that would have to be making sure a certain percentage of the people in your community actually agree to it.
Okay. What kind of timeline, like what would be the next step, or how soon could that be started?
Well, it'll start immediately.
Okay.
Not quite sure how long it'll take to actually come to a solution that you're happy with.
Right.
But I imagine that we can do traffic studies to see how fast cars are going and what times of day that is, and all the things all the information that we need to actually gather to be able to get whatever permits we need to do what we need to do.
Okay. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I'll add to that, as far as timing goes, this is an important situation that's brought to our attention, but there are others that have been brought to our attention as far as where we have on our schedule to conduct speed surveys. So just because we don't have the equipment out next week doesn't mean that we're ignoring you. We have other requests that came before you that we have to honor.
To
So
the
that could
logistics
be-
question.
That could be another 3 or 4, I don't know how many weeks until your neighborhood comes up.
But that doesn't mean that the police can't come out there in the meantime and do some intervention.
Correct.
Is there anyone online, in the audience online, that would like to address the board? Click the raise hand button if there is. Anybody else in the audience that would like to address the board? Yes, sir.
Good evening, supervisors. My name is Nick Ord. Here in reference to the property at 3021 East Market Street.
Your address?
Sorry, I'm not a resident of the township. I'm with Shiny Shell Car Wash. We have an active land
okay.
development. I'm here to just provide an update on what we've been working on. The property address is 3021 East Market Street. I'm here as you may recall, we were here last month working through here for our with our land development plan. I'm working through some waivers. I'm here tonight to just provide an update and kind of tell you what we've been working on in the last month. The main, I'll say, kind of issue or concern that we had was about the secondary access on our development. If you recall, we've been working to get in contact with neighbors. We have made contact with our Verizon neighbor, trying to get. We're being told things are being reviewed and they keep getting passed along as far as a potential solution we might be able to work out with that neighbor. Per the board's recommendation last month when we were here, you all suggested that we also reach out to the owner of the York Container property. We've been trying to do that, haven't been able to come in good contact with somebody yet at this point. We will still keep kind of chasing that avenue, as well as with our neighbor, the Home Depot property. My hope and plan is that we will be back in front of the board next month as an action item on the agenda again, but just wanted to make you aware of what we're doing and that we are taking action and taking the feedback that you gave to us, that we're actively trying to do that.
Thank
So,
you. I
Appreciate it.
that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, in the back. Yes, you.
Hi, my name is Erica Kikola, and I live on 42 North Russell Street. So I live on, I guess, 4 streets down from where this is all taking place. And I live on the corner of Russell and Philadelphia Street. There is a speed bump that is kind of catty-cornered from me, and I will say that when they repaved our roads, there's not as much of a difference. It's not as impactful. I've lived there for 11 years, and I see cars, they go airborne over it. I have 3 small children, and it would be just the peace of mind, the small inconvenience of driving a mile around or whatever, if things were changed, would be nothing to us because we can't let our kids outside. I have a 6-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 12-year-old. And I did want to just give that input that the speed bump is no longer as effective as it was prior to the roads. I think it was last year, wasn't it last year when they got repaved? So yeah, I just wanted to give that little input. Thank you.
If we already have one that was impacted by the paving, can we do something to refresh that?
We can look at.
Okay. We'll take a look at that. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned about getting signatures and stuff from the neighborhood. Where would that agreement come from? Is that something that we as the residents would write? Is it something you would get? I wanted to make sure that whatever they're signing is going to be allowed once we turn this in.
So
Where would I
that's
get?
something that the township has to do, is that correct, Mark?
The
Or is it
signatures,
combination?
right now, with our speed hump policy, signatures are required for that. And as I stated earlier, it's best if you reach out to me, and it can be as many of your neighbors as you want, reach out to me, and I can email that policy to you, and you could read it for yourself.
Okay.
And the policy comes from many years of putting something in, and as the chairman said, somebody requested something, we did something, then twice as many people didn't like what we just did, so then we had to go in and take it out. That's where this policy came from. So that's, when you read the policy and you see how specific the policy is, it's based on years of experience of people wanting something and then others wanting it, more people wanting it removed.
Understand. And where can we find it? Would that be on the website?
It's not.
It's not.
But if you contact me, I will email it to
If
you.
you just give email addresses to the ladies over here,
Great.
we'll make sure that you get the
Okay. All right.
policy.
Thank you.
Anyone else this evening?
I have just a general question. My name is Claudia, and the signs that you have that says keep pet.
Before you go on, Claudia, last name and address, please.
Claudia, private. So my general question is, the signs that you have on the side of the roads that says keep Pennsylvania clean. What are the rules or the regulations that you guys have in reference to people who don't abide by it?
Not sure what you mean.
So you ever seen those signs that our tax dollars pay that says keep Pennsylvania clean?
You talking about the road signs that are against littering?
Correct.
And your question is,
What rules are behind that you guys stand behind those particular signs? Or are they just for decoration?
The sign, the Keep Pennsylvania Clean signs are PennDOT signs. The township doesn't install those signs.
And then the signs above it that says, don't litter? Does that not have anything to do with the townships or the police enforcing people to abide by it?
Littering would be
yeah.
by the police department, yes.
What is the code that falls under that? Do you know?
I don't know.
Is there a way that you can get that to me today or at another time?
At another time, certainly.
Okay, or would he be able to if I spend a couple minutes after? Would he know?
the chief?
Officer?
The-
I don't know.
That's the chief of police back there.
Yeah, I don't know
And
who
he
he
is
is,
not
so
gonna, he's not gonna
Not gonna know
have
it?
that.
Okay.
Well, he might know it, but he's not gonna have a copy for you right now. If you give your
Or he could
your
just
email,
verbally tell me and I can
if-
just write it.
if you give your email address to these ladies, they can make sure that it gets sent to you.
But from your point of view, you don't know offhand if there is or isn't, or if they're enforcing that.
So they would enforce it if they actually see it, but
Do you know the
Prob-
statistics of you guys enforcing it?
no, I do not.
Okay, that was it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else this evening? Now, how many of you guys want to sit up here? All right, then we will move on to the rest of our agenda. So we have environmental engineering report. Diana?
Good evening, gentlemen. I have nothing to change or add with from the report that we submitted. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Anybody have any questions on the report? Thank you.
Thank you.
John, civil engineering report.
I don't really have too much to update. As I stated in my report, the Eastern or Suburban School District project is going to appear at November 7th at the zoning hearing board, and we did received some informal documentation that we're looking at. So Solicitor Sanders and myself and Randall will be evaluating that documentation. The only other thing I'd like to share with the board is we had a land development plan submitted and it'll go back to the Planning Commission on Davies Drive. And as part of that land development plan, we had them perform a traffic study on Davies Drive, and I know we needed the volume. And I know the board and everybody was interested in seeing that connection made. So the current average daily traffic is about 2,000 vehicles per day. So that's a pretty good volume. And interestingly enough, I think we posted at 35. I'm fairly certain. And the 85th percentile is a statistic we use to the speed is about 34 miles an hour, so it ties in nicely with what it's posted for. But in that study, interesting, and the road is very straight. There are no calming measures, and of course there's no neighborhoods, but there's a couple of nuts out there late at night going 60 miles an hour or so. So you always have those kind of people that push the limit. And I think as the gentleman said before, local police cannot use radar to enforce speed limits. So I know that's always been a concern for township supervisors. That's all I have.
Any question for our engineer? Thanks, John.
Thank you.
All right, next we have our consent agenda, items A through I. Are there any items on this list that anyone would like to have removed for further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion. All right, it's really hard to hear them. Can we boost their sound? I know that Supervisor Dvorak made a motion and Supervisor Bishop seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
There we go. All right. Next, bids, proposals, contracts, and agreements. Authorization to award bid for Springettsbury Township Park Signs Project to Forge Sign Works LLC in an amount not to exceed $90,600.
Mr. Chairman, this project is, as it's stated, to replace the park name signs of all of our neighborhood parks. The project was advertised, it was bid, we received 3 bids. Forge Sign Works submitted the lowest bid. Their references were checked, and I recommend authorizing that contract.
Thank you. Fellow supervisors, any comments? We have a motion.
I move to authorize accepting the bid.
Charles, I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a couple of seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nothing under subdivisions and land development. Any communication from supervisors this evening? All right, we'll move on to solicitor's report.
Nothing to add to my report, Mr. Chairman. Any questions?
Any questions for the solicitor? Manager's report, Mark?
I do not have anything to add to my written report.
Anybody? All right, then we have several ordinances. We have an ordinance and several resolutions here. First is ordinance number 2024-02, authorizing appointment of solicitor for interest assessment and fees, and to collect fees as part of unpaid municipal claims for delinquent accounts.
Mr. Chairman, this is the past due sewer debt collection. This ordinance was advertised and is ready for adoption if the board so chooses.
Boy, that was a mouthful the way that was worded. Is that your fault?
No, that is, nope, that is the new solicitor for delinquent accounts, and that is their proposed language.
Okay.
I did review it, though.
And it's good stuff.
It looks appropriate to me.
Gentlemen, any comments, or do I hear a motion? Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. What happened to their sound? Next, we have resolution number 2024-48, designating additional depository.
Mr. Chairman, this is a resolution. Terry Hummel and I discussed opening up a dedicated bank account to deposit the future funds that we need to pay for Yalfer's equipment that's on order. Our share is around $2 million. And this account, we would add so much money per year, so it's there when we need it.
So, gentlemen, I talked to you earlier this evening about Yalfer, York Area United Fire and Rescue. It serves 3 municipalities around the area here. So when they need to buy new equipment, it is not cheap. So it gets divided among the 3 municipalities. In this case, the recommendation here is that we open up a bank account to hold money for equipment that we have on request that we will have to pay for in a year, 2 years, maybe 3 years in some cases, as that equipment is built and delivered to the township's fire department. So our share of it is going to go over time, like putting money in a piggy bank so that we have the money to pay for that equipment when the time comes. It's one thing that we do to try to make sure that we never overextend ourselves, that we always have the money to pay for the things that we need to do by planning ahead for it. And the manager, our director of finance, and the rest of his township staff do an excellent job making sure that we do that. Gentlemen, any comments on this resolution? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve resolution number 2024-48.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have resolution number 2024-49, authorization to apply for statewide local share assessment grant for police radios in the amount of $107,003.75.
Mr. Chairman, this resolution and the following 3 resolutions are basically the same. It's authorizing us to apply for those 4 grants for the equipment as listed.
Can we take this in a block then, C, D, E, and F?
We could.
Gentlemen?
I move for the adoption of resolutions number 2024-49, 2024-50, 2024-51, and 2024-52.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So now we're reaching old business. Is there anything that we need to discuss this evening about sidewalks at 11th Avenue and Whiteford Road?
No.
Any further work on adoption of the new building codes?
We're continuing to work on it. There's nothing to add at this point.
Volunteer fire tax credits.
I have met with the volunteer fire chief this week. We reviewed everything. He had no comments to add or edits to suggest. My next follow-up is to meet with Chief Hoff to go over everything with him. And my hope is to have this to the board at the November meeting to authorize advertising of the ordinance.
America 250 PA, that presentation is going to be
November 20th.
And then Mount Zion Drug Valley Road Water District.
Solicitor Sanders and I met with upper level staff at York Water yesterday. And the outcome, and I'll turn it over to James, but the outcome of that in summary is the York Water wants to stick with the current agreement as far as not changing the current agreement. They have a lot of capital that they invested in the mid-'80s with anticipation of many more customers connected to that sewer or that water system than there will be or there has been. So I don't think there's much chance for movement on that part. And James, you can fill in anything I may have missed.
No, and we, unfortunately, that was the agreement that was struck in 1985, and that's the terms of the agreement. We've talked through the various provisions, and unfortunately, the payment mechanism really doesn't have any trigger to stop or end it. It's a payment mechanism that was derived from anticipated growth in the township from '85 forward, and they were making that capital outlay at that time frame and anticipated capital outlay going forward. So, right, wrong, or indifferent, unfortunately, the growth of the connections in the township has not met where they were looking to have, has not met the capital outlay that they put forth. So what I will say is, in looking at how the payments have flowed over the years, the township is making progress, and a lot of that is dictated by connection fees, water usage, and any type of commercial development. Really, commercial development is what's driving the principal pay down on it. So there's not a lot of options for the township to remove themselves from the agreement in a more expedited fashion.
There's no way to expedite payments or do any type of buyout, or was that something?
So absolutely, the township could certainly buy out the remainder of the debt, which is roughly $500,000 in round numbers. It's not the exact number. And then the township, however, they would fund that either through a general fund or borrowing on their own, would certainly be borrowing at a lower interest rate. So that would certainly be a way to lessen the amount that would be paid off over time. Here's what I will tell you. Right now, the way that the payment mechanism is in place, and this is more accounting lingo.
Sure.
The liability is sitting essentially on York Water's books. It's not on the township's books. If the township chooses to bring that liability onto their books, what you're looking at is the township then would have to come up with a way to have the residents pay down that debt obligation, or the township, the taxpayers just accept it and move forward, and you never get it paid back. I know it's a big number.
I wasn't suggesting we do it. I just want
Yeah,
to
no,
know
but
my
this
options.
is the
Yes.
movement of it. If you would go down that path, you would be looking at managing bill payment and sending out bills for $2 to $5 per payer every month.
Per month, yeah. So right now on,
It would be very cumbersome for the township to go about that.
And since they already get bills every month from the water company, it makes much more sense to continue that.
Yes, that's what I'm landing on here. I've put my arms around it, thought through it. Mark has thought through it, and I don't have a very feasible solution other than what's currently in place.
I did ask, in addition to what James just said, I asked if we paid the debt off, would they continue to charge their customers the surcharge, so they're collecting the surcharge and then turn around and pay us? They are not willing
They're not willing to do that.
No.
So then we would take on additional expense to run that entire program, which would not be cheap.
Well, it's not just the additional expense to put that in place. Think about the other side with the uncollectibles. I mean, you're going to go chase people down for not paying $24 in a year. There's a certain percentage that just won't pay it. It becomes a scenario that, economically speaking, was not very feasible.
James, it's Charles. Have we explored a scenario of repealing our own ordinance, and what does that blow up if we do that?
So if you repeal the ordinance, you remove the mechanism to pay back York Water, and York Water will in turn come knocking on the township's door saying, hey, we have this debt obligation. You agreed in our agreement to use this mechanism. Now that mechanism has been removed, so you are obligated to pay back the debt on that. So that would be something I would not recommend at the current time.
Yeah.
I also asked yesterday, because it was asked of us, can we just pay the connection fee and not connect to the water? That is an option, but based off of York Water's tariff, it's an expensive option. And the exact number wasn't given to us, but it was significant. So that tariff is built in to their loss of revenue. So it's significant number. The number that was stated yesterday was $13,000. And that was them, they didn't have it in front of them, but that's the number that they remember as part of their tariff.
Can we get a more exact number from them?
I can certainly get the more exact number.
I have a sort of different kind of question. Do we have a level of confidence that there aren't other situations like this that we're not aware of?
I'm pretty confident there aren't. We brought up the Mundus Mill Water District, which is the only other water district mentioned in our ordinance. And they don't have they didn't have the agreement at hand, but they're pretty certain that that one's been satisfied.
Don, you're not talking just about water, are you?
Well, not anymore.
Well, I'm just asking because I know that we were running alongside a gas line in Barwood Road there the last couple of weeks.
I guess there's always things like that to worry about.
And sewer, anything else like that, sewer would be with the township, not with the water company.
But the sewer system, we have one district that's still paying on the capital for their sewer installation.
I know.
So I will definitely get the tariff number and provide that information.
Yeah, let's get all the information together so that we can share that, and then we have the information we need to move forward.
Will do.
So do we have any way to figure out how we at least communicate this really effectively with the people involved, the people affected?
I have
And give them timeline.
several people that I have their email address, and I have communicated with them basically to this point, just telling them that we had a meeting scheduled. Once an official decision is made by the board, I was going to send out a subsequent or a follow-up letter to my initial letter, September letter, stating what exactly the final decision is moving forward. But I was not planning on sending that letter out until there's a final decision by the board.
Any other discussion on that?
Well, I think we ought to have some kind of a plan about how we're going to get to a final decision.
I think my suggestion was we need to see all the rest of the pertinent information. So you'll send that out to us,
I will.
and then
Yeah, I agree with the chairman. I'm still not sure that I accept what York Water's telling us and that we don't have any options. I mean, I admit James shared with us some options. They don't sound exactly the best, but I'd like to see a little bit more of the math behind what they're talking about and go from there.
Yeah, since they're publicly traded, are we able to see this debt on their books to verify that it exists? Because I thought that was an argument we've made previously, that York Water wasn't aware.
I'm not sure what you said. I couldn't hear you from where you are, and this is not a public comment session, but I'll open up the floor if you'd come up here, state your name and address for the record, and ask the question, please.
Mike Adams, 3420 Druck Valley Road. Adams, 3420 Druck Valley Road. So, being that York Water is a public company and they should have the information available for us to see, would that debt be anywhere to see exactly what it is? Or is there a list of accounts or anything because they're a publicly traded company?
mean, you would have to ask York Water whether they would want to, they're required to, or allowed to provide that information. We can.
But shouldn't you guys know that information to?
Well, we have given the amount of the debt. We gave it in the last Board of Supervisors meeting, and sorry, I don't have it at my fingertips, but we did give the total amount of the debt. That is the obligation. And again, it's around $500,000.
And end of June, it was 541,000 some dollars.
Right, and then
that was given out, and that should be in the minutes from the last meeting.
for the township to absorb $500,000, I don't think would be as much as an issue as to have a whole road of residents paying $8,000 to $12,000 to hook up to a water service when, you know, most of us don't need the water. I think that we should try to fight a little bit more and try to see where having more information takes us, because I feel like we're not really, it doesn't seem fair that they have this ordinance set in. There's really, they say they're crunching numbers, they never really got their money back, but it's been 40 years and there's no end in sight. So they can branch that main off.
Well, there is an end in sight. The amount of money originally was somewhere in the $1.5 million range for them, and
it was 2.8 million.
And it was a similar amount for us. Yes, it was about 1.4 million each, I believe, that was invested in that. So it was a significant amount for it to be down with the small payments that are being made and the hookups as they're being paid. This is an obligation that we have that, as you heard our solicitor say, that if we don't follow through with the obligation, it's actually going to cost us a lot more money to handle it at that point. So your fellow neighbors in that water district were all part of this at the time, so I understand you don't want to pay it, but as we do with waste service and any other service that we provide, the burden gets borne by the group, not by somebody who says, well, I don't really want to do that because I don't think I need it.
Well, it's not even that. It's not like you guys want $14.95 just as a fee, and then
No, we don't want that.
right. Altogether, was what I'm saying is you can't just expect residents to have $8,000 out of pocket and give them 6 months to hook up to a water line. That's not how things work in the real world. We just bought the house. We have you guys telling us, you and the water company telling us that we have to hook up to a water service, have 6 months to do it, and then we have the tax people walking around on my property without any permission or anything, trying to reassess the house when the house was just sold, trying to assess the house for what it's not even worth. And it's just like, this doesn't feel like a welcome to the community that, you know, in this day and age for 30-year-old people to buy a house with a 7% interest rate, this doesn't feel right, okay? We bought a 153-year-old house. I can't just throw money out, like, it doesn't feel right. So I just wanted, this is how some of us feel on the street. I know that you're just, well, nobody else in the neighborhood expected to, you know, have to pay for, well, yeah, it's at least $8,000. I know because I do it for a living, okay? I don't know, our frustration is high, so I think you hear where I'm coming from. But, yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I did have a question for the last speaker. I'm curious if it was disclosed to him in his seller's disclosure as to whether there was a water district or anything like that would have been on the deed. No?
They mentioned might have the option to hook up.
They said it might have an option, it was just an agreement in May.
Which is basically, the flub where York Water thought it was optional. So it was misrepresented, but not purposefully. If I can speak to real quick. Tisha Grove, 3420 Druk Valley Road. I would ask that when looking for a solution, if ultimately we are responsible for paying this fee, if you guys can get creative on borrowing or how residents are expected to absorb the costs, because right now rates are really high. So if we do have to borrow money to complete this work, just thinking about a way maybe that the residents can borrow at a lower rate or something. I don't know if that's an option. That's all I got.
Yeah, we'll discuss options. Thank you. All right, do we have anything else this evening? Anything else from my fellow supervisors? That takes us to the end of our agenda. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Troop 25. Appreciate you being here.